Welcome to the content content lesson video for tourism topic 3, sustainable tourism development. So this is for topic 3 in tourism cluster 2, topic 3, part 3.1. Okay, where we'll be looking at achieving sustainable development through tourism development itself. Okay, so this is 3.1. Right, so a couple of concepts that you need to understand here. Okay, so we'll start with the more simple ones, right? How does tourism development help achieve sustainable development? Okay, so reminder again, what does sustainable development want to do? There are two main things they want to do. One is to achieve high standards of living for all, okay, in the present population. And secondly, they also seek to ensure ability of future generations to meet their needs. Okay, so every generation is taken care of and there's continued progression whereby future is not shortchanged because of current needs. So that's very important. So when you're looking at sustainable tourism, right, there are three development of sustainable tourism development. We're looking at three forms of sustainability, mainly social, the social sphere, the economic sphere, as well as the environmental sphere. So the social, you actually we actually covered developmental areas earlier on in the UN SDG 17 goals, right? So I hope this is vaguely familiar to you. We covered this in the very first cluster one, geography of everyday life, in terms of sustainable development. So it is not very, very far away from that. It is also with these ideas of sustainability in mind when we're looking at sustainable tourism development. Okay, just specifically in the growth of the tourism industry and no longer the overall development of the country itself. So when you're looking at sustainable tourism development, who are your key stakeholders, the people who have an invested interest in this? You're looking at the government, the international organizations. Okay, you're looking at businesses as well as the tourists, the actual people who are taking part in this, and finally, you're looking at a group called the locals. Okay, so these are your big five. These are the five groups that have an important role to play in terms of developing tourism in a sustainable manner. Right? Each of them have a very critical role, and if you only have one or two of these five actively working towards the sustainable development of tourism, it's not going to happen. Okay, you do need some level of interaction or some level of commitment from all of these five stakeholders. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Okay, so it's important to note they have to work together. Mainly reason why they're all trying to work together is to ensure high levels of tourist satisfaction. But why you want that? Okay, the tourist, what does that bring for other four except the tourist itself? The tourist definitely want higher level of satisfaction, right? Because you are paying money and you are trying to get some form of leisure satisfaction out of this tour that you're going on. But what about the rest of them? Okay, what does that tourist satisfaction bring to them? Okay, so once again, I will come back to our original underlying concept of human tourism, of human geography. Most things in human geography can be filtered down to the concept of money, right? Who is earning money? Where is the money generated, right? Who benefits and who is the victim in this situation here, right? So why do we want high levels of tourist satisfaction? Because you want tourists to spread the good word for you. You want more tourists to arrive at your shores and consequently spend more money at your area, increase your tourist receipts, which we covered earlier on. And this, for the government, it means with greater amount of taxation, greater earnings. Maybe it can help generate other areas in the economy. For the locals, right, it means more money for them in their pockets. For international organizations, it could be a chance for them to then grow their reputation because their forecasting, their expert knowledge has helped this country do this. So it's always about money, okay? They're trying to get higher levels of satisfaction. Why? Because we want to earn more money for everybody. Okay, stakeholders must have a share, and normally they have to work within the trade-offs with one another and find a consensus. It is not very likely for tourism, any form of tourism, to be very successful if your stakeholders are not working together, right? If you're constantly fighting with one another, it shows, the cracks will show. Okay, so in terms of the government, what can the government do? There are two main things that the government can do. One is to deal with policies, and the other one is to deal with enforcement. Okay, so when you are looking at policies and plans, right, government has the ability to plan ahead, to put in place certain infrastructural development, certain focus areas of development, certain general directions that they want to develop tourism in. And this is something that only the government has oversight as well as the ability and power to do. So what we're looking at then, if you scan the QR code, you will be brought into a reading article that hopefully you can find some time to read. It gives you some background about this development of Sentosa that's upcoming. Okay, this Green Plan 2030 and the amount of investment is actually quite substantial. Right, you're looking at 68.5 million dollars into the Tourism Development Fund going into how they can develop places like Sentosa in a sustainable manner. Okay, so this allows businesses who are in tourism, right, to tap on funding like this, that and to engage in what the government wants. Yeah, the government cannot go out and do everything. STB alone cannot uh, plan, operate, actualize, and put in place developments. Okay, STB can only provide funding, some assistance, maybe some expert knowledge, and provide a general direction that they want businesses to latch on and go for. Okay, the people who push will be the businesses. But to entice the businesses, governments can have policies and plans, can have incentives like this. Okay, so this is the Sentosa development. I will not show this in the recording here. Please go into the YouTube channel, Geography Singapore YouTube channel, and watch this under the tourism playlist. Okay. The other thing that governments can do is, of course, enforce regulations. Like a rule and law is only as good as the level of enforcement that is done. So if the government is able to not only put in place the rule, regulatory rule, right, they are able to then enforce these important things, enforce the regulations out, then this is very important because then it allows what does it do? It allows your tourism to be developed along the lines that you want. Okay, so if you like, for example, you take a look at the imagery here. If your government can come out and give us a law, that a rule, okay, an enforceable rule that says that this area, this mountainous area, class landscape, any building that has been standing there for more than 150 years cannot be destroyed. Okay, the facade cannot be touched. You can do whatever you want inside. You can do refurbishment and whatever. You cannot remove the building or you cannot touch the facade. What we allow people to do, it will allow you to then move in and do restoration, right? Do maybe redesign the use of this particular structure here, which is very beautiful. Okay, this is actually a temple, but well, if you don't enforce what can be done inside, it can become a very beautiful mountain top hotel, right? A resort. Okay, so these are things that if you can enforce, it can be done. Can you imagine if you cannot enforce this, or the government don't have this kind of regulation? What can you lose as a result? You can lose this heritage site. Okay, this can be completely lost. Will gentrification and converting of this into a hotel lead to a better outcome? Not really, but it's better than losing the site, right? So what would be the most ideal if your government is able to then entice and work with your business partners to come and find a way to monetize this cultural site, or this heritage site, or this religious site, whichever one you want to classify this as, then that will be a win-win situation. But always bear in mind, it's always about trade-offs. So there are many times where government may choose to let go of this thing and come back in terms of with a counter proposal, do a trade-off, right? Because this you may have like 10 or 15 uh, strong religious heritage sites. So something's got to go lah. This one they give up. Okay, so think about it. Enforcing is important. Being there to put in that the rule of law is important. Being able to enforce the rule of law is even more important. Okay. Now, is it always going to be effective? How effective are governments in influencing this? Number one, if you have poor enforcement, okay, think about it. If you're unable to enforce, you can have a million rules you cannot enforce, right? You get threatened all the time that if you fail the next exam, uh, you will be your allowance will be cut completely. You have no allowance, right? It cannot be enforced, right? Because you need money to get around. You need money for meals. So that's poor governance, right? Willingness to enforce, okay. I can enforce it, but I'm unwilling to do it because I'm worried that instead of the message getting through to the agents, the business partner decide to just uproot and go to the next country, then I'm willing to enforce certain things. So I let certain things slide. Okay, if I let too many things slide, what will happen? Okay, so this is one big problem. Enforcement is a big problem. Okay, and the second problem is actually what is important to the government. Is it really conservation or is it economic development? Right? Are you profit driven? It's not impossible Okay, actually all governments to some extent will be profit driven. Okay, it's not wrong, right? It's not wrong to be profit driven, because if you are not profit oriented, then how are you going to get money to maintain or to conserve or protect your heritage areas, your sites and all this, right? And then to build infrastructure, the government has to be profit oriented. But if you're excessively profit oriented, you may take short term gains instead of long term gains. Okay, so I come back to my beautiful mountain side temple here. Right, what would be a great short term gain? Right, removing this, letting maybe banyan tree come in and convert this 3,000-year-old temple into a temple resort, right? With yoga and whatever nonsensical thing you have. Right, within the next 10, 15 years, it could churn a lot of tourism dollar for this location here. It could bring a lot of tourists, a lot of ancillary businesses could thrive because of this. But what have you lost? You've lost a 1,500-year-old heritage site. Okay, so that trade-off is very important. What are you going to, as a government, recognize, and what are you going to prioritize? Okay. So second group we're going to talk about is international organizations. This, once again, I would like to highlight. This normally consists of, in our minds, NGOs. We always think of NGOs, non-governmental, non-profit, right, charities. They operate independently, but it may not always be so. Sometimes they are also international organizations like government-led instances. Okay, so they can be non-government, they can be government. What do they do? Basically, they coordinate. Okay, they provide consultancy, expert knowledge, okay, and they do coordination. Sometimes some of these have money, right? Like if you were talking about the UN level international organizations, they do have money. Okay, so then they can come in and provide some sort of financial assistance to certain stakeholders. Okay, because what they may be looking at preserving, right, is not only important or useful for the country itself. It could be something that is a rich human heritage site. Okay, so I give you an example. If there's a cave, let's say in Zimbabwe, that is they find a 20,000-year-old rock painting, right? That's not only useful or important to Zimbabwean history and culture, it is important to humanity as a whole. Something that's 20,000 years old. Okay, it's not 20 years old, it's 20,000 years old. So these are things where maybe non-governmental organizations or international organizations that have funding may then step in and offer assistance to the local authorities or to local groups to do conservation. So the biggest one that you must know is UNWTO, okay? United Nations World Tourism Organization. Okay, so the case example you have in your SLS as well as I think in the textbook is one of the Vietnamese village where the handicrafts were developed, okay, to deliver more income to the poor families. So you develop what they can do, right? You create employment opportunities in terms of a tourism interest in the area in what they create, okay, their handicraft, and then this creates this continued new income, right? So once again, you have this tourism practice video that's also in your Geography Singapore YouTube channel, okay, under the tourism videos insert, right? So you alternatively you can open your PowerPoint slides and you can watch this video as well. Okay, right? INGO is another one, non-international is, but INGO is non-governmental. Okay, Action Aid comes in. Action Aid is a bit unique. They tend to uh target only things that more or target more the things that cause social justice, gender equality, and their aim is to eliminate poverty. And they do like to deal with the small scale local tourism, small scale local community based tourism. Okay, so one of the case studies that you have in your textbook and you, as well as the notes is the Myanmar case study, right, where they engage in dialogue and they help establish community-based tourism in Myanmar. Okay, this has come to a screeching halt given the unstable context of Myanmar politics now, and they are always really once the environment can settle down. I'm very sure INGO will come back into Myanmar to help the local interest groups and local communities restart their community-based tourism. Okay, is it in is it effective, right? Is it how effective is this? One key problem they face is local context. Sometimes they may not have local context. They have broad-based tourism knowledge as well as the ability to identify general trends in tourism, global trends. But when you're looking at the local context, sometimes it's the little nuances. Okay, like I look at like when you have a new form teacher, it comes in, he or she may not know like that on the appearance everybody seems friendly in your class, right? Because we're all trying to be nice people, right? But undercurrents will not be felt. So similarly on this level here, if you are an international organization, right, at your irregular touch points with the locals, you may see generally what the problems are, but you may not be able then to see the fine details that actually have an impact in terms of implementing what you want to suggest or implementing what they want to do in the end. Okay, so it may not be a ability thing, it could be a cultural thing, it could be a social thing, the undercurrent that actually stops this. Okay, that is actually one of the most important things. The other problem is the support that you receive from the locals, right, may not actually be sufficient to actually implement what they're trying to do. So in the best case scenario where they don't want to help you, it is okay, right? Because in the worst case scenario, they can actively choose to sabotage what you're trying to do, and then that totally hinders your development. Okay. Second one would be lack of funding, but this tends to be the non-governmental one. The governmental-led international organizations have money, right? They have money. Okay, the problem is the international organizations that are not government-led. They tend to be non-profit. So the choice or not rather choice, the source of their financial might, right, is purely based on donations. And that is a very irregular thing. So without funding, they have the best plans. They may not be able to implement completely. The locals, because you're not going to give me any help besides talk, right? I may not have the money to do this either. So funding is one of the biggest problems. Okay, so keep in mind when you're looking at this, understanding context is something that, while problematic, these international organizations can work towards. But lack of funding is something that is really, really hard for them to overcome. Okay, unless they find some like donor or some patron who decides to like bless them with his entire inheritance. Okay, then even then they may tie them over for a short period of time, but in the long run, having a business model based on donations is never a great idea. Okay. Now, next we're going to move on to the other three groups: businesses, locals, and tourists. How they can actually influence this. Okay, so let's look at businesses first. In terms of businesses, scale is very important. How big the business actually is, right? If you are a small scale tourism business, you're generating opportunities generally in a more direct manner. You're targeting locals to fill in these service roles that tourism brings about. Okay, but if you are the larger businesses, right, MNCs, that come in to a particular location to do tourism segment development, you will bring in funds, investment funds, expertise from overseas, and bring in even more opportunities for peripheral tourist industries. Like, for example, if I decide to build Disneyland in Singapore, you will not only need to deal with the things that you sell in Disneyland, build the theme park itself, right? You need labor to stock the theme park, you need cleaners, you need staff, you need cast members, you also need food, right? So your raw produce and all this, these are all the benefits that a large tourism business can bring to you. Okay. However, the incentive is important. So what is the incentive to these businesses to protect the environment? Okay. Mainly is to encourage return tourism, because if they don't, they are the ones who understand it. If I don't protect this environment and there's continued damage to the area, right, then people are not going to come back. Okay. And although we have 7 billion humans on Earth, almost 8 billion now, it's not enough if you don't do return businesses. Okay, because there are only that many tourists. Right? So Quicksilver Cruises is one of these examples that is in your SLS guide as well as in the textbook itself. Right? What do? They are environmentally friendly Great Barrier Reef tour guide company that guides people to the Australian Great Barrier Reef of Cairns, with an aim to introduce a more environmentally friendly approach to tourism here. Okay. So once again, this is in the channel. Please go and watch this on your own. Right? So effectiveness, how effective are they? The key problem is money. Once again, it's money. So if you look at the key thing here, right, is this idea of profitability focus versus sustainability focus. What is more important to the company at this moment in time? Okay, is it really true that they are really focused on sustainability? You don't really know, right? You don't really know. Think about many times the examples I give to you guys in terms of revision. You will be sitting in front of your materials for 3 hours, but are you really studying for 3 hours? Nobody knows except you, right? So in this case, nobody knows except the business. What is the reason for them moving on this? Okay, this idea of greenwashing is a very big problem. Okay, are you really, really, really concerned? Okay, or are you presenting yourself to be very concerned, but you're actually not concerned? And the reason why you present yourself to be very concerned about this promotion of sustainable tourism is because it's the hype thing, right? It's the in thing, it's the bandwagon that everybody wants to jump on, and with more and more tourists thinking that this is the right thing to do, and on top of it being the right thing to do, my friends will think of me better if I can tell them that I'm a sustainable tourist or I engage in sustainable tourism. Then this risk of greenwashing will get even higher. You will see companies that will constantly advertise, push in your face, oh, we're sustainable, we do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, to make sure that there's lower impact on the environment, and you will be eating green vegetables and blah 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 blah. Right, so that's greenwashing. I'm not saying that all companies that advertise that they do sustainable tourism are doing greenwashing. Okay, it is not that's not the case. However, you will definitely be able to find, if you look enough carefully at what they are doing versus what they're advertising, that a lot of them are doing greenwashing. Okay, why do you need to greenwash? Once again, because money talks, right? This is where the hype is. This is where the bandwagon is. So this is where they want to be too. Okay, local communities, similarly, they are the ones who are in the exact location. They are ones who have the experience, who have the knowledge, and they are the ones who are actually context dependent. They depend on this area, okay, and the returns, whatever form of returns it is, whatever form of development, they are the ones who depend on it. Okay, they are the ones who hold the cultural heritage, the resources that is in the area as well. Okay, so how can they go about doing this? One way is to interface and communicate with the other stakeholders in terms who are now currently trying to develop tourism in your area, okay, and then to talk to them and convince them that they want your participation in this, it has to be sustainable. Okay, right, working with the government is another way, right, seeking inputs with the government on what can then the local community do to help support things like this. So like if you're a local business or you're in the events business, right, this is something that is highlighted. Okay, NEA can give you advice, give you some things to work on in terms of event planning, how to put in certain things so that you are actually trying to do recycling at your event rather than just putting everything into one bin and then burning all it as incinerated trash. Okay. Community-based tourism, something that the local communities can work with, right? You have the local knowledge, you can help protect the sites better, you know most well what should do, what you shouldn't do at the site. Okay. Other limitations, of course, there are, right? Financial, technical expertise. You may have the practical knowledge about it, but the technical expertise of how to protect it may not be there. Okay, so you do need to work with stakeholders, right? You need to work with other. So what are these other stakeholders we're talking about? It could be the government, it could be the international organizations, it could be the business owners itself. Okay. One other problem is when you're looking at community, right? They're also human, right? So what will they prioritize? The reason why they want to do this is probably they don't want to do what they were originally doing, with some form of agriculture, something that's more tiring and less profit driven. So their concern is going to be money still. Okay, so you can call them sellouts, you can call them people who betray their own roots and sell out their own area, but money talks. Okay, money talks. So if they are not able to see long term profit in terms of, if I earn less money now, I can continue earning this money for like 15 generations, as opposed to I earn a lot of money now and then by the time my kid is an adult, this area this is completely destroyed, so tourism dies. then my kid is now without a job. Okay, if they're not able to see the long term versus short term and they only value the short term gain, then it's a tough journey. Okay, right? Genuine interest, right? Of tourists, right? Tourists are actually the worst people, right? Because they have limited time there, so they will not normally be able to see the impact of their actions on the environment they're in. Okay, so as a result, what they want to see or what they want to do is something that will maximize the pleasure on that they experience from this location in that limited amount of time. Okay, but of course, if they develop genuine interest in the area, in the form of trying to enhance the culture, the environment, and the economy, then these are all great. Okay, these are all great, right? How can they do it? Responsible interaction. Okay, that's it. Right, interact with the environment responsibly. Don't litter. Don't try to remove every single life form they can see. Don't try to bring every single piece of rock from the pyramids home. Right, when you travel, respect the environment, respect the people, and then you will be able to positively impact the growth of sustainable tourism. Okay, so Tiger Top's Elephant Camp, right? Yeah, this is actually the website tigertops.com. Right, if you go in, you will see that, oh, this is actually not a tiger enclosure. This is an elephant farm, right? But how is this different from the thousands of hundreds and hundreds of not thousands, yeah, hundreds and hundreds of uh, elephant conservation sites you have in Thailand as well as in India? The difference is they are sustainable, right? So they will rechannel the earnings back into the conservation of tigers as well as elephants, and they will not let you go on the horrible things that victimize the elephants that are in their camp, right? So you cannot ride on the elephant, you cannot feed the elephant. Probably you can, but they're not like a zoo, okay? So they are in a more sustainable manner trying to conserve the ecology and the environment. Right. So Tiger Top Camp is one of the examples that's highlighted. I cannot find a video, neither can HQ, so there's no video for this, but you can visit the website and see how you can make a booking for it, what are the rates, how expensive this is, okay, and what the experience is like actually. You will realize that it's a non-intrusive experience, unlike many of the other less environmentally sustainable focused ones, right? This is really largely more sustainable. Yeah, for lack of a better word, more sustainable. Okay. The other thing that you can do is, of course, respect culture, lah. Right. So this report that you see here, from an Australian newspaper, right? Why Australian? Because Bali used to be filled with either Japanese or Australian tourists. Okay. When it's in June, you will find Japanese tourists. So you will find Australian tourists. When it's December, you find Japanese tourists because they just go to Bali to surf. Reason being, it's too cold to surf back home. So December, the Japanese come surfing. In June, it's too cold in Australia. Australians come surfing. So when they arrive and they wear the bikinis, right, this was a big problem initially for the Balinese population, right? So respecting local culture, respecting the fact that this what you wear, what you say, how you interact, may not exactly be the best thing for that local population there. Okay. Once again, limitations to tourist actions. The tourists, right? Number one, besides them needing to want to care for the environment they are interacting in, cost is another problem. Cost and budget, right? They must be able to afford these sustainable options. Because sustainability comes at a price, okay? Normally, because you have limited numbers, okay, the pricing tends to be more expensive, right? Next, information. How different is Tiger Tops from the any other of the hundreds of elephant conservation camps that you have out there, right? How would the tourist be able to make a choice based on the website itself? Okay, because I don't think you will do a pilot survey. I don't think you will do a recce trip to three or four and then decide, okay, then I'm going to pick you, right? So, what are your information sources? Will you be able to tell whether that particular location you're going to has enough of a sustainability slant? Will you? Right? If you can't, you don't have information, you may just not be able to make a clear choice. Okay? So these are the general challenges that stakeholders will face. All right. So what are some of these challenges that stakeholders will face? sustainable tourism, what is your understanding of it? Right? What is the understanding of the next person of it? Okay, because the sustainable tourism isn't isn't one clear definition, right? It's a spectrum of practices of which different tourist practices in different locations fall in. So it can be a tough thing to nail down, right? And this can lead to a conflict of ideas between the stakeholders itself, right? Maybe like when you talk about using ICT in your teaching and learning, to some people the using of PowerPoint, except PowerPoint slides is using ICT. To some of you, maybe thinking, oh, then maybe if the teacher uses PowerPoint slides, don't write on the board all the time, and he uses Kahoot as ICT. So if I use PowerPoint, I don't use Kahoot, then it's not ICT already, right? But what is your benchmark of that? So my idea of it and your idea of it may be different. Okay, so this becomes a problem when you're dealing with it. Okay, next, the resources. Every stakeholder in the group of five, right, each have a different amount of control over the resources. Okay, some have more say over what is finally taken to be done. Right, for example, the government may have the most say because the government can actually actively turn away tourists. Okay, and say this area, sorry, closed for tourism, no tourism at all, and then the rest of you just too bad, find somewhere else to destroy. Okay, so amount of control is the other one. Okay, understanding amount of control, right? Different priorities. Okay, ultimately, when you're looking at stakeholders, it's not one, it's a group of five, and when they all interact at the same time, they all want something for themselves. So when your priority is different, right, it's always going to be challenging to negotiate. Okay, and although you can say then, but suppose you mentioned earlier on that the government has the ultimate say. That is true, but as a government, would you really want to have to come out and say no all the time? If you keep saying no, what are you doing to your tourism development? You're actually negating it and you're going to put it on storage. Okay, for how long? Right? In the very first place, why do you want to do this? There must be a purpose, there must be some profit driven or some developmental goal that you want to achieve. So you're trying to use tourism for it. Right? So it's a trade-off that all five groups have to work together with. Okay? So the example that ends off this area here is the Isle of Man example. Now, Isle of Man is a island in the British Isles. It's got nothing except for endless amount of winding roads. So on the normal day, right, there's almost no tourism to talk about the Isle of Man. But because it has got copious amount of long winding roads, it actually holds a very famous motorcycle race. It's called Isle of Man TT, right? Uh, it's massive. Okay, it's like you have an F1 weekend in Singapore. Okay, so the roads are closed and everything comes to a grinding halt, and the island is bombarded with thousands and thousands of tourists. Okay, here to watch this. Okay, so think of it like F1 in Singapore. Okay, why is it local being? Because the island itself isn't very big, and the route that this our man TT takes is actually winding around the entire island. So when you're having a race, right, what does it mean? You don't have many roads that are not being used for the race. So it is road closure, you know. So think about it, road closure is one big problem, right? In Singapore, where we have the F1, when we close the roads in the CBD, basically it comes to a grinding halt. Okay, and it has to be held on the weekends because can you imagine closing the circuit, our F1 circuit, which runs through the central business district during the weekdays, where everybody still needs to go to work, right? The pandemonium that we created is what you see in our man because they have nowhere else to go. So the locals suffer great inconvenience and also suffer massive noise pollution. Okay, so are the locals happy about this? Not really. Are there other things that our man can do? Okay, so you take a look at where our man is, right? Actually, our man is in the perfect place. It is in the middle, right, of where you will find Ireland, in Ireland itself, and then the UK itself. So it's right in the middle here. So we can attract tourists from all these areas. Sorry, so my arrow is the wrong direction. All these areas is very short ride only. But what do you have to attract if you're not talking about the Alman TT, right? So this is the general landscape that they have. They have karst landscape. Okay, karst limestone landscape, which is pretty, which is interesting, which can be developed. But are they willing to do this? Okay, is the government, are the other four stakeholders, or if you add the government, are all five stakeholders willing to pivot to this new development? Okay, so this is the case study of our man. If you just go into YouTube and type our man TT, right, you will you will be bombarded with videos after videos of motorcycle racing. Very exciting. It's normally a weekend as well, but the inconvenience that's caused to the locals is massive. Okay, so with that, I will stop here. This concludes the section 3.1 and 3.2 of topic 3. Okay, so catch you in the next topic video.